I want to welcome you to the Pro Mindset Podcast. The Pro Mindset Podcast is all about diving into the headspace that results in championship performance. High-performing athletes, winners, have this mental flow and have a positive headspace for their performances and success. Join me, Craig Domann, sports attorney and NFL agent, on this podcast. I will interview pro athletes, college athletes, football coaches, and sports personalities. Together, we can discover how you can get in the flow and have your own pro mindset. Hey, I want to welcome a special guest today, Scot McCloughan, who is one of the most respected NFL evaluators on the planet. And Scott has been a GM for multiple teams and been in the NFL for over 20-some years. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Craig. I appreciate being here.
Okay, so Scott, before we get started talking ball and talking about the mindset of GMs during the draft and leading up to the draft, let's real quickly talk about the sports world as it pertains to your family. You know, your father played in the NFL, your brother played in the NFL, you played in the minors in baseball. How was it having a dad that was a former NFL player as a dad?
It was great. You know, he played 7 years with the Raiders, and then, of course, scouted for 39 years with the Raiders. And the thing that was impressive about it, he never forced sports on us. Of course, we were always going to play it because that's who we were, me and my brothers. But the thing I learned from him so much was from the standpoint, I used to sit downstairs with him on a little projector and watch tape with him off the wall. You know, of course, times have changed much since then. But he taught me work ethic, and he showed how much respect he had to Al Davis. I learned from that because, you know, he, like I said, he was there, whatever it was, 46 years with the Raiders, and just saw it. And then he, you know, got me hooked up with Ron Wolf, you know, of course, which in Green Bay was my first job. But my brother was a really good athlete, you know, played 4 years in the league. He was working for the Raiders until they just let all the scouts go home, but I don't know what that means. But, you know, yeah, no. Yeah, no. My dad said back, I guess, in the 80s, Dallas did the same thing because they're worried about information getting out, which I don't agree with. I mean, you got to, if you're a GM, if you're a head coach, you got to lock that stuff down, and they got to respect you when you say what you say, because I never felt like I had people putting information out. And if I did, then I'd give them false information, you know, not very often, but just false information and see who it is that's doing it. Yeah, no, I've been very lucky to be in a football family. You know, I had a really bad knee injury, which made me play baseball, which was fine. And I enjoyed my time in the minor leagues. But, I got it. It's football. McCloughan family through and through.
That's awesome. Okay, so Scott, you know, many years as a scout, director of college, various personnel positions, and also just being the GM of two organizations, right? So let's go to Seattle. Okay, you were with John, and yep. John's one of those five guys that Ron Wolf put in the GM chair with Reggie and, you know, John Dorsey and Ted, and you.
Yep.
Are those the five guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, that's some very successful guys. It's a testament to Snyder that he's been a GM now for a very long time, you know, and has been to the Super Bowl multiple times. But when you were with him, you guys drafted a guy out of Wisconsin that was a grad transfer that just signed the biggest deal in the history of the game this last week. So what did you see in Russell Wilson when you graded him back in, I don't even know what year it was. What year did Russell come into the league?
You know, I don't know. It was
6 or 7 years ago.
7 years ago at least, yeah. The thing that's very unique about that question is, you know, because they named me the senior personnel executive, and, you know, I was John's right-hand guy. And him and Pete got along really, really well, which is still the same. It's very cool, you know, GM head coach. But we're going to draft Andy Dalton. Me and John wanted to the year before Russell. And You know, he went to the coaches. I'm not going to say any names whatsoever, but they said he can't play in our system. He can't. He doesn't fit our system. Okay, that's fine. You know, and you got to take that into consideration, especially when you're on the, you know, you get ready to get on the clock. So we passed on Andy Dalton, you know, and John and I both wanted him. And Pete's like, no. I got to go with my, you know, offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. And I looked at John. I'm like, you crazy, dude. You know better than that. So we did. We passed on him. So then the next year, there's Russell Wilson. And John loved him. And so, same thing. He went and he walked out of the room, went to the OC's office, and him and the quarterback coach were in there and said, Russell's not going to be able to play for us. He doesn't fit our system. And John came back so red-faced it wasn't even funny. And while he was gone, Pete told me, he says, if John wants this guy, we're taking him. And I said, well, John wants him. I promise you. So John came back, and he was fired up. You know, not in a bad way. You know, John's a really good person.
He was connected, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to stand on the table for your guy.
Yeah. No. And he said, we're not doing this a second year in a row. So, of course, we take Russell in the third. And the only reason he was there is because of his height, which, of course, is a non-issue. I mean, football player's a football player. And he looked at me and he gave me a big hug. And he says, thank you for helping me out with that because I needed someone to support me. I said, you're a GM. Take the best player. And he said, well, it's Russell, hands down. I mean, the guy threw 40-some touchdowns in 1 year. I said, take him. Last year I told you to take Dalton, you know. But the thing that's unique about that conversation was I told him after that night, I said, if we had taken Dalton last year, do you think we would still have taken Russell? And he said yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, here's an interesting...
And we just think, well, the thing about this, too, I'm sorry to cut you out there, but we just signed Matt Flynn, like $9 million.
$10 million, I remember. It was like a $10 million bonus.
Yeah.
and you guys knew him because he was with Green Bay.
Well, yeah, no doubt.
Well, here's the thing that I can connect with Russell Wilson is Brett Bielema, as head coach at Wisconsin, apparently sent him his playbook about 2 weeks ahead of fall camp. He shows up to fall camp in Madison, and he knows the entire playbook so well that he took over the team from the first day. And no, I was just going to say that guy is professional as they come, and he didn't turn a light on when he went to the NFL. That's just who he was.
Yeah, well, and the thing that's unique about it too, and everybody out there knows Wisconsin's blue collar, you know, Midwest, you know, toughest crud, just, you know, going to do their jobs. He got named the captain within a month.
Yeah, that's unheard of. For a grad transfer to come in and do that.
Well, especially at Wisconsin. I mean, because they had a lot of good players. You know, and they got guys that have been there 4 years, 5 years. Yeah, no, he got named the captain, and I was on board bigger than life. The same thing with Baker Mayfield. I was on board.
Okay, let's go to Baker Mayfield. You know, he goes number one last year with Cleveland, and hindsight, 2020 shows us that was absolutely the smartest move. Okay, but while that was going down, what were some of the doubts and what were some of the hesitations in taking a guy that was of his stature with the number one pick?
First of all, like you said, stature, his height, which, again, a football player is a football player. And second of all, just he's not arrogant, but he's very confident, if that makes sense.
Yep.
You know, he's all about it. And the team's unique is a good thing. Okay, so he has his pro day at Oklahoma, you know, and all the players are in there getting ready to work out, you know, run the 40s and shuttle and all that good stuff. And he walks in and he clicks. He goes, and every player did the same thing. I'm like, holy smokes. He controls this team. Yeah, he clicked twice. And the all other clicked. And, you know, of course, he had a heck of a day. But stuff like that for a quarterback is so important, that you have the respect, the trust, and the players are going to follow you. And I think he showed it this last year, as a rookie and setting a record for touchdowns. And he didn't start the first 3 games, but it's unique, little things like that. As a scout, as a GM, they all go in the portfolio that you have on a certain player. And I'm just like, holy smokes, he's got 15 guys clicking after he clicked.
I was talking to the Browns offensive line coach after the season, and he shared with me a story that happened against the Jets when the Browns were playing the Jets, and Baker came in, and the starter got hurt. He came in, yep. And after one of the plays, the starting linebacker for the Jets came up to Baker in his face and said, you don't know who I am, but I know who you are, and we're going to take you down, something to that effect. And Baker goes, I'm sure as hell glad you know my name because I don't know yours. He turned around and walked away. And one of the offensive linemen heard the exchange, came back to the sidelines, and basically told all the other linemen, hey, this is what Baker said. This is our guy. And yeah. They knew after the first series of him replacing the starter that he was going to be the guy just because of his moxie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very, that position is so important, and it's not hard to figure out from the outside looking in, because if you meet with him and you see his tape and you see his body language when he's sitting there in an interview, and he'll challenge the head coach, he'll challenge me as a general manager, he'll challenge anybody, because that's all he knows.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's a Super Bowl type quarterback.
Correct.
That makeup.
Correct.
So let's talk about quarterbacks for a minute. What do you look for in quarterbacks? Every year, so many GMs' careers are flying in the wind until they get a quarterback.
Yeah.
And so so many things hinge on the ability to find that franchise quarterback when you're picking in the top 10 and you don't have one. So what are the traits that you look for that maybe everybody doesn't know? Because everybody knows you want arm strength and accuracy and some of those things.
Well, the thing is touchdown to interception ratio, wins and losses, red zone production. Red zone production is huge because that's how you win and lose games, because you're going to be in the red zone no matter what at some point. And just see, you already said accuracy, which is huge. Mobility, I think, definitely important. But as you're well aware, Tom Brady's not mobile. But he's so freaking smart, and he can see it. He anticipates. I'm not going to say the quarterback that I was with in Washington, but the one before the one I made a starter could not anticipate. He could not see it. He would wait till the receiver broke, the tight end broke, the running back, or whatever, and then throw. He couldn't throw him open, meaning he didn't throw it on time. When the guy's put his foot in the ground on a 10-yard out, the ball should be in the air. If it's not, then you got, the corners in the NFL, of course, they're going to close like nothing, and it's going to be an interception or, pass defended. But I paid a lot of attention to wins, of course, touchdowns, interceptions, and red zone.
Scott, what trait does a quarterback lack that you can, coach him up? And what trait that he may be lacking is impossible to change? I mean, it's like the old saying, you can't change the stripes of a zebra, all those kind of things. I don't care how good of a coach you are. I don't care how great your system is. If he can't do this, he's never going to do it. What are those two traits?
The one's accuracy. You can't change accuracy. It's like speed. It's God-given. It's with his eyes, and it's with I hate going back to Baker, but when he threw the ball, he hit guys in stride, which means they didn't have to slow down to catch the ball, which gives you another 5 yards or another 50 yards. When you got guys, strong arm guys, they're throwing it, and they got to stop to catch it, and then they get tackled. That's a unique thing because he had it, and you can say, of course, okay, we're throwing this 10-yard out. You got to hit him in his hands, above his head, over here. But you got to be able to do it. And I think that was huge with me with Baker, and that's why I fought for him so hard, is the fact that I told Dorsey, I said, just watch him. Okay, we watch all these quarterbacks in a row. Watch how many times he hits this guy in stride and why it's another first down, why it's another 10 yards. Because they're not slowing down. They're catching it and running, and same thing Brady does. I mean, same thing Eli used to do, same thing Peyton did. If you make them stop their feet, the defenders are going to get to them. You hit them in stride, okay, they'll get to them. But, it's another 10 yards. It's getting closer to the first down or closer to a touchdown. I think that's so important. And it's the little things that add up when you start watching quarterbacks that matters like that.
Well, here's the thing. Guys that are accurate make more plays than guys that don't. And guys that are accurate, when they see something with their eyes, they can actually make a play because, let's say, for example, the defense breaks down, there's somebody running, wide open down the field, and you hate to see that quarterback airmail it 5 yards over the receiver's head. He has no chance to catch the son of a gun, and it would have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened that was New England and Kansas City in the AFC championship.
Yeah.
Mahomes is a hell of a quarterback, but he airmailed one on a receiver that was wide open.
Yeah.
And they end up getting 3 or something like that at the end of the half. But if he hits that kid, it's 6.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's a very unique position. Very unique. I've been lucky enough to be around some good ones, and they make your life a lot easier on Sundays.
Okay, so what's the one thing that you can change with the quarterback? He shows up on campus in the NFL, and he can't do something that the coaches feel like they can coach into him. What is it?
Well, I'll put this. In 2005, my first year, we had the first pick in San Fran, was the fact that I took Alex Smith, okay? He came from the spread system, and the thing that was unique about it was he never called a huddle. He was so quiet, not in a bad way, but a good way. He was a quiet guy. And Mike McCarthy, who was the OC that first year, where he went to Green Bay, had to teach him how to call a huddle, okay? How to, get down on a knee or whatever and just play. Well, he was so quiet they couldn't hear him. So he had to teach him how to be more vocal because there's going to be 70,000 people screaming at you. You got to be able to get the play in quick enough, get out of the huddle, but they got to hear you. Which from my standpoint, that was I never thought about that when we took him, but he never called the huddle ever. You got all the plays on the sideline.
So you can teach a player a new scheme. You can teach him, if it's no huddle, hurry up. You can put him into a pro style. That's something that's transferable. That's something you can coach him up on.
Definitely.
Right? And then if they don't have, let's say they're not vocal. I mean, here's the thing about the no huddles. You don't get to exhibit leadership as a quarterback on the field.
Correct.
Because you line up in the gun, you look to the sidelines, your boys are looking at the sidelines too, and you don't get a chance to be a leader.
Well, you got hand signals and all that. Yeah, but you're right. You're right.
Not like you can when you're in a huddle where you can, demand the offensive line to suck it up, even though they've got a guy that's killing us, and we're trying to double team him or chip him, and he's still getting, putting pressure on the quarterback. That's where the quarterback can empathize with his guys to say, hey, man, just give me 2 seconds.
Yeah. Well,
just 2.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that's important, in my opinion, about the huddle, especially when it's, fourth quarter, you got one drive left to try to win the game. The quarterback, because like I said, I was lucky enough to be around some really good ones. They look you in the eye when they call the play. They look around the O-line, the receiver, the tight end, the running back, whoever, and calls the play, and you come out of the huddle, they believe. They believe he's going to get it done, and that's huge. So you put responsibility on the other 10 guys, When you're doing no huddle, it's just like a free-for-all. Okay, here we go. We're going to go fast. I understand. The ball's going to be out quick and all that. But I always respected, like Brett Favre. He'd go in that huddle. Everybody believed when he called the play that it's going to be successful. Everybody believed it, And I know he's a Hall of Famer. I know he's 3-time Pro or MVP and all that. They believed it, And the thing that's unique was, with Alex Smith, at first they didn't really know, but then they end up knowing. They knew he was a quieter guy. With Matt Hasselbeck, he won the huddle. He called it, and they're like, okay, we're good to go. Russell Wilson, go in the huddle, call it. It's very unique. Baker Mayfield, same way. Goes in the huddle and calls it, and they're like, okay, I believe in him. He believes in us. Here we go.
Well, it is 11-man. It's an 11-man team.
Yep.
And, quarterback can't do it by himself. And so when you do have a huddle and the quarterback gets an opportunity to be the leader and inspire his, teammates, then 11 guys can accomplish a lot more in a play than if they're just out there looking to the sidelines, getting some signals, and then just going, hey, they're in their own thoughts.
Yeah.
The slot receiver's out there looking in, making sure he doesn't jump off sides, but he's in his own thoughts, where if they huddle up for 10, 15 seconds, there's a unity that goes with huddling.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'm telling you, it's like say you had a child that was not acting right, or not doing exactly what you wanted them to do, and you knew you wanted to help it. You're going to talk to them face to face. It's the same thing with the huddle. It's a family. They sit down. Yeah, no, it's bigger than life. And if you got their trust, which the guys, like I said, been lucky enough to be around, then you got the opportunity to make a play, because they're going to do everything they can in their power to make sure it's successful.
Well, the other thing I would venture to say, taking an example of the family unit that you mentioned, is sometimes you could be in a public place and one of your kids is misbehaving, and you meet eyes, and they know what you're thinking. They know what you're saying, which is cut it out.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
You can affect your child's behavior just with a look.
Yeah.
And quarterbacks can do the same thing.
Yes, and they need to. They need to, because it's, I think all 11 on offense, all 11 on defense, all 11 on special teams are all very important, but that quarterback has to be, somebody has to lead the group, and you can say left tackle, that's fine, offensive tackle, but they're not making plays. They're blocking, don't get me wrong, to make a play, but the quarterback, the running back, receivers are making the plays.
Well, let's just put it to you this way. Only one offensive lineman gets to touch the ball. And so when you don't get to touch the ball, it's hard to make plays, because we got to move the ball down the field. So the quarterback gets to touch it every time. Yeah,
we got to figure the center and the quarterback touch it every freaking snap. They touch it every snap. And that, say it's 60 plays, say it's 70 plays, whatever. It's highly, highly important to have everybody on the same page and have everybody believing in each other, And I think that's what Brady's so cool about, and I'm not a big New England fan because they win so much in Super Bowls and all that, but I respect Belichick and I respect Brady, because Brady touches every snap. He changes the game by himself. Now, it could be a good way or bad way, but when more is said and done, he does it in a good way.
Well, for a guy that's going to be 42 in September, that's just coming off his 6th Super Bowl, his 9th appearance, he's got you got to hate him, but you got to respect him too, because he's just done it more than anyone's ever done it.
Well, you got to respect him. You know what? And he's not the most athletic, gifted guy whatsoever, but he's so smart, and he's such a leader, and he's so competitive that players follow him, and they're going to do whatever they can possibly do to make sure he's okay. And look at the receivers they've had, and
they don't even have a number one receiver on the team most years.
No, I know.
And when they had Randy Moose, they didn't win.
Yeah.
So it's almost uncanny how he's able to win with, good players but not great ones.
Yeah, no. You can go through it. I could bring you to my house and we'll sit here and watch tape on New England, player for player, and then I'll show you another team. And you'd be like, well, they're not even, the talent's not better. I said, I know, but all I do is win. All I do is go to Super Bowls. It's incredible. You know, but that's Brady being Brady. I mean, son of a gun. Personally, you know, I'm 48 years old. I have not, you know, I love Brett Favre and back-to-back Super Bowls and all that, but he's the best quarterback I've ever seen, ever.
I don't think there's ever been a game I've seen of New England where there was such a mismatch of talent, meaning the other team had the Patriots outmanned, and they still won, and that was the Jags game in 2017. I think it was the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, it was.
The Jaguars were just superior in ability, man for man.
Yep.
And somehow Brady gets them to the end of the game. They had more points on the scoreboard.
I know. That's what's so great about this business, because, I mean, talent's talent. You have to have talent. There's no doubt about it. But that goes to show how important the quarterback is. I've been telling you, if you want man for man, offense, defense, special teams, they'd lose almost half the games at least. But that quarterback just finds a way. Yep.
I know it.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about a young man who might be coming into the draft this year, next year, whatever. He's a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How should he have? Let's say it's a young man like the kid at Alabama or the kid at Oregon that are coming up for 2020, and they're going into arguably their final season. The guy in Alabama has one more year left after this year, but you know Oregon's got to go. So for guys like that, knowing what you just said, which is 95% of their grade is really what they do during the season, and you know their intangibles, off the field behavior, and things like that. And that's even before the combine, and they even do one interview. You know, they throw one pass, they do a pro day, and they throw 50, 60 balls. 95% of it is perhaps, you know, done. How does a guy like that attack his final season so that he can put great tape out there so that he can maximize his draft position in 2020?
Well, again, it's just production, wins and losses. It's, you know, and there's been quarterbacks that have been on 500 teams, you know, that 500% of teams, that, you know, they go 6-6 or they go 7-7, whatever, you know, nowadays. But it's, you know, it's mechanics, but the two guys you talked about have already proven that they can win. You know, now they're totally different quarterbacks, but it's, you know, when it comes down just with the quarterbacks, it's the interview process. It's put them on a board. The coaches put them on a board and say, okay, diagram your best play and explain why. And okay, so let's change this. Okay, I want you to draw this play and see their intelligence, because with the spread system, there's not a route tree. You know, it's run to a spot, stop, and then throw the ball to them. You know, and it's not the quarterback's fault, it's not the receiver's fault, but that's what's so hard to figure out nowadays is, can he run a route tree? Can he run, you know, a go? Can he run a slant, post corner? Can he do a comeback? Because you don't see it, you know, but it's nobody's fault. You just got to figure it out. That's what makes it so tough, you know, especially with the offensive linemen. They're not asked to be in-line dry blockers. They're asked to be finesse and just put your hands on them because the ball's going to be out in 3 to 5 seconds. You know, again, it's not their fault, but you have to figure out, you know, who has the strength, who has the power, you know, because in the NFL, you got to dry block, you know, especially you're playing late in the season, you're playing a bad climate, you know, you got to be able to run the ball and you got to get movement up front. But you watch college football, there's no movement up front, you know. I mean, the thing about it,
I mean, you could name on one hand the prominent teams that run pro style, like Michigan State, Alabama.
Correct.
There's not very many.
Correct.
I can't even name any others. I'm sure there's a bunch more, but I don't even know who they are.
There's not a lot. No, there's not a lot because, like I said, I watch a lot of tape, and it's all finesse. It's all finesse, and when they want to run the ball, they'd rather go east-west at first than north-south. I'm like, okay, well, the end zone's down there. Why are you going towards the sideline?
Oh, those horizontal schemes drive me crazy.
No, I know.
All they want to do is get the ball in an athlete's hand and hope he makes somebody miss. That's really the game. That's like backyard football. There's no scheme. There's no timing. It's just get it to him and see what he can do. Welcome
to my life, and try to evaluate. Okay, why are you running towards the sideline? The touchdown's the other way.
No doubt. Well, I got a news flash for you, Scott. I'm not smart enough to do what you do. I can't evaluate like you do. I've been in this, agent business for a long time, and it's a very unpredictable animal on who's going to play 10 years and who's not.
Sure.
Most NFL players have a shelf life of 3 years.
Sure.
It's by design, and after 3 years, teams kind of have to make a decision. Do we want to pay him, or do we want to let him go and find somebody younger, cheaper, and healthier? And so the goal for most players, they don't realize this, is to beat their shelf life. Because the league will give them, if they're talented, the league will give them 3. But after that, they ain't giving them anything. And they may not even be giving them 3, but that just seems to be, when teams start looking, they scrutinize their players differently going into RFA world if they're undrafted and unrestricted world if they were drafted. You look at them differently.
And when I was in San Fran, we didn't have a lot of success, but we had some success, and then we changed coordinators 5 years in a row and all that stuff for the quarterback. But I always made, if you draft a guy and you train the guy and you know the guy as a person and his work ethic and the competitiveness and all that stuff, and the coaches know him and all that. I re-signed, I think, 7 guys that ended up going to the Pro Bowl that I drafted. And I did it early, and everybody's like, why would you do it so early? I said, well, because we identified. They're our own, again, like family. And are we overpaying them? Yeah, maybe a little bit, and that's fine. But they're ours, like Patrick Willis, Joe Staley. I signed, Justin Smith, and everybody's like, you're crazy. You gave him way too much money. Okay, well, he changed the entire environment in that building.
Yeah, Justin Smith was a culture changer.
Bigger than life.
He did the same thing in Cincy before he came over there. I mean, He was the glue to that organization on defense.
Yeah, everybody's like, why'd you pay him so much? You only got so many sacks. I don't care about sacks. I mean, they're nice, don't get me wrong. I need people in this building that are football people. They're tough, and you can get after it. And I'm telling you, he changed not just the defense, but the offensive mindset. It was.
Well, let's talk about Justin just for a minute.
Yep.
When you have guys like that and you overpay them, the thing you got to remember is you're only overpaying them for a short period of time.
Correct.
Because the money keeps going up every year.
Correct.
So even when you paid Willis and some of those guys big money, they were passed up at some point in time in the near future. But let's go back to Justin and the impact that he made and the type of person he was when he played. Describe like his makeup, his mental makeup, and then how do you try to find more guys like him?
His mental makeup, I mean, I could say words I can't say on the radio or the podcast, but he was tough. He would tell all the defensive players, you're going to be in here at 6 o'clock in the morning to lift with me. Most of the time, especially nowadays with the prima donnas and all that stuff, they're like, yeah, whatever. I'll be in there at 8 and do what I need to do. Every defensive player would show up. So, because I was always there working out, so I could see them all working out. And then, 2 days into it, when he first got there, all the offensive players were showing up. He had that much respect. It was amazing, and they call him Cowboy for a reason. But a great guy, but no one would cross him, and I'm like, we got something going now. There'd be coaches that would show up and come and work out because Justin said they need to be there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So
no,
he had enormous respect.
Yeah, the thing about it was, he was a really good football player. Special, no. but really good. But what he brought to the organization, you know, it was incredible, you know. And I got lucky to be able to sign him. And, you know, of course, like everybody said, you're an idiot. You're overpaying them. But I'm like, no, I'm not. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down with tough guys. I'm going to go down with competitive guys. I'm going to go down with guys that, you know, are leaders and show the young guys, because we were so young, show the young guys how to act. And he did. He did. Hell, they went to the dang Super Bowl.
One of the things that I think is underappreciated and undervalued is that aspect of a veteran leader who can be the coach in the locker room that just kind of sets the tone when the coaches are not around and can kind of reel in guys that they need, the organization needs to be successful. But for the fact that they're so distracted by just the bling of playing in the NFL, they need a coach inside the locker room to reel them in.
No doubt about it. It's huge. It's huge. And I think that's why, again, going back to New England, I think that's why Belichick does what he does. He gets the veterans, because they have not drafted well whatsoever. But he brings in veterans in free agency that are that. They're leaders, you know, and he's like, okay, well, he'll take care of it, or say something to him, walk out the field. So I need you to look at so-and-so or so-and-so, or get the D-line back going, or, you know, linebackers, and they'll take care of it, you know. So then there's responsibility and there's accountability, you know, and they're like, well, the head coach is telling me this, and he's been so successful, I got to take care of this thing, you know, without the coaches stepping in, you know, and embarrassing the player, because player to player is different than coach to player.
No question.
You know.
And I hesitate to say this, but I don't know if Bill Belichick and his style, if he was a brand new first-year NFL head coach this coming season, if his system would work.
Well, you saw Cleveland when he was there. The thing about it is they got the best player in football, you know?
Quarterback helps.
Yeah. That changes things, you know. I remember I was sitting here last year, I was watching the game, and I can't remember who they were playing. And, you know, and they're doing nothing from the get-go. And, like, and my wife's like, well, they're going to get beat. I said, no, they're not. You watch the quarterback in the second half. And he just took over. He threw like 4 touchdowns. I'm like, that's how you win games. That's why you have a quarterback like that.
Well, is there a quarterback like that? And I know you can't compare a young player to Tom Brady, but in last year's group or this year's group that you're like, has a chance?
Yeah. You know what? You know, I liked all the 4 quarterbacks. So I wasn't a big Jackson fan. You know, I thought he'd be a receiver. I mean, and not knocking him. Maybe he ended up being a good quarterback, but he's a running quarterback, which, you know, nowadays I think it's good, but it's bad. But
it's good in the short term, but it's not sustainable.
Well, you got to stay healthy. I mean, the guy I was with in Washington that I replaced, you know, was Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
You know, but he got hurt, you know, and it was over. You know, but I really think Baker's going to be a legit guy for a long time, because he's durable, he's got some substance to him, and he just understands how to play the position. And not knocking Rosen, not knocking Darnold, you know, I'm not knocking Allen, you know, but he's got the it factor, in my opinion, and that's hard. You can't teach that. You have it or you don't have it.
No, you show up to work with it or not. I mean, that's something you go to sleep with it, you wake up with it.
Yep.
You know, it's something that that's who you are.
Correct.
And very few guys have that.
Correct. It is few and far between. And there's a lot of good quarterbacks, don't get me wrong. They're very talented, they got strong arms, but there's more to it than just that. It's the fact that you're the guy, and you know you're the guy, and you know they're leaning on you to be the guy, you know, and that's very unique. You know, that's what Favre had. You know, that's what Hasselbeck had. You know, that's what Russell Wilson has. You know, it's just
all
they
Super Bowl quarterbacks.
Yeah, they have the it factor. They, you know, and it's just you can't teach it. You can sit down and talk to them about it 24/7, and say, well, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do that. They do it by themselves.
They need a coach, but they don't need a coach.
Correct.
They need a coach to organize the team, but they don't need a coach to coach them because they're probably demanding more of themselves than the coach even demands.
Yes, no doubt about it. You know, they want to know the scheme. They want to know who we're attacking this weekend, you know, where we're going to, which corner's the weakest corner and all that. They want that. But the other stuff is when they step on the field, you can't teach. And that's in them. You know, it's just who they are and what they are.
Okay, Scott, I really appreciate you taking your time today. I've got one more question.
Okay.
I'm going to call it a day. All right. Being around the game for your whole life.
Yep.
And being at the top, I mean, you were in the King's chair in a couple different organizations, and there's only 32 of those jobs in the whole world. So from that vantage point, speaking to a player that's coming into the league, let's say he's coming into the NFL this season, okay? It's going to be drafted this weekend. Biggest day in his sports life. He's going to get drafted in the first round, second round, third, whatever. How would you coach? Let's say he's your son. So he's family, and you want him to maximize his career. What do you tell a young man like that so that he does the right things, you know, achieves the most success he can have, and avoids the pitfalls that a lot of guys run into?
Well, it depends on round 1 to round 7 or whatever. But me personally, me personally, if my son, I'd tell him, listen, put your nose to the grind. Like you said, 3 years, 3.3 games is the average career in the NFL. I said, enjoy it. Understand that there's thousands of players out there that were in the draft this year that don't have the ability or don't have the access you have to be in a training camp. You know, never take one day lightly. Make sure you do what the coaches say, but make sure every day you get up, you do something to make yourself better. Every day. It doesn't matter from the standpoint of working out. It doesn't matter from the standpoint of reading the Bible, from the standpoint of just being a good person. Make sure you do something to take care of yourself every day. Your diet, all that stuff. You know, and there's going to be a lot of people around you. There's, all the players that are going to be there surprise you, and they're all really good. Just be who you are and what you are. If you're good enough, you'll make it. If you're not good enough, you know what? If you did what you thought was right and did it as hard as you could possibly do it, then you can walk away knowing that you gave your best effort. I used to tell players that all the time. You just know every day you did something to make yourself better. And if you weren't good enough, then don't make that decision. But walk away with your head high knowing that you did everything you possibly could do to make the team.
Amen. And what you just described gives people peace of mind because the NFL is a game of failure. It's a business of failure. You know, half the teams lose every Sunday or every weekend, and 31 of them by the end of the season are losers. So there's only one champion, and there's such a turnover in the rosters during the course of a year that, there's probably only about 30, 35 guys are on the team from, jump to the end.
Correct.
And the rest of them are kind of like there for a little while and keep the seat warm until they bring somebody else in or somebody gets dinged up and they move somebody up from the practice squad and all those types of things.
Correct.
So, well, hey, I want to thank you. I'd love to have you on again sometime.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Pro Mindset. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. 5 stars, of course. You can follow us on our website, promindsetpodcast.com, or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pro Mindset Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you the next time.